Alright, let's start on our first mod. Now today we're going to focus on the analog stick. Now from the factory, from Nintendo, if you've never messed with one that's custom, you're gonna be fine. Just use it as is, enjoy it. But there are a few flaws that Nintendo makes that we can improve on. The first being is the fact that the lube that they put on the stick box is not that good. It wears away over time. It almost evaporates and gets tacky. We are going to add our own lube to the stick box. I recommend white lithium grease. There are a couple other ones you can use out there, but this is just cheap, easy, and does not degrade nearly as quickly as the Nintendo stuff. The second upgrade we're going to do is what's called the slickbox upgrade. As an example, here is an OEM spring. Now this guy is what is in the stick box currently, and it is a 4-pound spring. These suckers are pretty darn tough. Sorry, bad focus here. There we go. Now, the thing about having a spring that's just a coil like this is it's hard on center. See, I can actually move the controller as I move the stick. And it loosens up as you go towards the outside, which makes it fall off when it comes to pressing it. So it's hard here, easy to move here. The correction for that is to use a stacked wave disc spring. Do you see how it's kind of swirly and interconnected here? This is more of a progressive spring. It is also smaller and has a less of a spring rate. This is a good thing. What that is going to allow us to do is to have the exact same amount of pressure to move it this far as the exact same amount of pressure to move it this far. It is going to come back onto center easier, and it's going to be lighter on your thumb. Now, between the springs and the lube, you are going to wear down your stick a lot less, which means you won't get loosey-goosey and have a dead space in the middle nearly as quickly as you would with OEM Nintendo parts. Because of this, it's going to last a lot longer, be competitive a lot longer. It will all eventually wear out and you will have to replace a stick box, but doing this mod will increase the lifespan of it 3 or 4 times. And not to mention the feel is impeccable. So let's go ahead and get this guy open and start working on it. Alright, let's get this guy open. Grab your tri-wing bit, or of course, you can always use a good manual tri-wing screwdriver. I have a bit of arthritis, so I tend to use my good little guy here. And let's go ahead and zip out the back 6 screws. Alright, now that those are out of there, always keep a magnet handy to throw your screws on. Highly recommend. Now let's open this guy up. And this should be the first time it's been opened since Nintendo sealed it. And this is just beautiful inside. This is such a good... I highly recommend starting with a good controller if you're going to build a competitive build. Now, we can set aside the bottom half of the shell. We won't really be working on that today. And we just need to get this cord off of this post right here. It's just wrapped around friction style. Once you pop that guy off, the whole board will come out nice and easy. And this is where we'll be working today. We do not need the top half. Make sure your Z button does not pop off. They tend to pop off at this stage. What I recommend is pulling it off and just setting it in the shell. When you set it aside, it won't run away from you. All your buttons mats are now secure over there, and we're going to work right here. Alright, to pull the analog stick off to get at our stick box, all we're going to do is wrap our fingers around and give it a gentle tug. They come off fairly easily. If it takes a bit of force, give it a bit of force. You're not going to hurt too much in here. It's all made out of Nintendium alloy. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and pull the C-stick as well, even though we're not really going to work on this box today. We will lube it up, but there's no sense of doing a slick box for a C-stick unless you're that try-hard. we're going to be focused on the left analog stick over here. This is a T3 stick box. I highly recommend when you are hunting for a controller, look on the back of them and try to find the dot on the bottom of the controller here. If you find that, it means it does have T3 stick boxes. The aftermarket for them is better. It does not take any soldering to remove them. It just makes your life as a modder easier. It also just feels better in a controller. All right, now let's take a nice close look at this stick box here. Right now, I'm looking inside of it, and there is just no lubrication. I see nothing. I see some old brown dried up stuff, and that's the original Nintendo lubrication. It's not good. It deteriorates over time. It does not take wear very well. We're gonna fix that. All right, now to get at your stick box, we're gonna have to do a couple things. First, I highly recommend using a spudger, just a hard plastic wedge. You can find these in pretty much any repair kit that you've ever ordered, they'll send you one. And we're gonna take this guy, and basically any wedge, if you've got a pair of tweezers that make a wedge, it'll work. Just be careful with anything metal, you can damage your potentiometers, which are these guys right here. That is what's reading the signal off of your stick box. We're gonna take this spudger, we're gonna very gently work our way in until we hear the plastic let go. We're gonna ever so slightly bend it off to the side. You're not gonna hurt it, we're just gonna be able to pinch it back when we're done. Go ahead and get the other one out. Again, nice and gentle, don't want to force it too much, and ever so slightly bend it off to the side. That's that step done. And now we're going to flip the board over. And we're going to have to get some stuff out of the way to gain access to the screws on the back of the stick box, which is very easy. We're going to remove the vibration motor, which just slides in and out. Is very easy to do. Slide it right out. And then we're going to remove the bracket. And all this takes is pressing on these two tabs here, and it'll just pop right out. Now, mounted inside of that are your L trigger receivers. We're just going to pull these wires through this gap, and it'll slide right out. Same with this side. Pull the wires through the gap, it slides right out. Set that aside. And now we have access to these two small screws, Phillips head, that are on the back of our stick box. Alright, get your screwdriver out. Switch over to a nice tight Phillips head. And we are going to zip out these two screws right here. Once you have those screws out, it's as easy as flipping it back over and just giving it a little yoink. Your stick box will come right out. Don't worry about if you lose which direction it goes. It will always have a tab on top of the post which will go north on your stick box. Now, we do not need the board right now, so we are very gently going to set it aside, because we are going to work on this little guy. Alright, now this bit can get a little tricky. With your post facing north, you're going to look at the southeast corner. You're going to put your finger there and flip it over. You will see that there is a screw hole on that southeast corner. And when you move the stick around, it ever so slightly lifts up the back. We're going to take our spudger or any other pry tool, and we're going to slip it in there and pop it. Now, make sure you keep a hold on this. This is got a spring inside of it. Slowly reveal it, and you'll see that I have separated the spring container from the movement of the stick box. Make sure you keep this part together. You can take it apart to lube it up, but in my opinion, it's easy enough to lube at right here on the bottom where it's exposed. And over here, we'll work on the spring. So we'll set that aside to lube it in a second. Let's go ahead and get this spring going. Alright, getting this spring out, again, can be a little tricky. It's under load as we speak. So what you want to do is there's a tab on north, south, east, and west on it. And you just want to pop those tabs off. It does not take much. Once you get one or two, the whole thing's ready to just come apart. There, see? Took me 3 of them, and now only 1 tab is holding. All you want to do is very gently, whoa, Jesus, there it went. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Sucker popped right off. Luckily, that landed in my lap. I have absolutely had to go hunting those down before. If you're nervous about it, set up a Walmart bag or some other plastic bag and do it inside the bag, so if it does pop, it's going to stay inside the bag. Alright, so this is the OEM spring, as I showed you earlier, and we are going to replace it with this nice stacked wave disc spring. And that is just going to improve so much of the handling of this. And it is as easy as dropping it in, taking your containment octagon, and giving it a good press. There you go. All tabs actuated, and it is sitting in there. That's it. That's all it took. Next, we'll lube this guy up now that we got it nice and open. All right, and so in order to do that, we're going to take some of our white lithium grease, and we're just going to put a little onto my plastic over here. And that is, good Lord, that is so much more than enough than you will ever need. For an applicator, good old toothpick. Now, where do you want to put the grease? If you look at the bottom of the stick, there are a few moving parts in here. You basically want it to go onto everywhere that moves. So, keep this sucker together, because if you do pull it apart, it's pretty obvious how it goes back together, but save yourself the hassle. We will have an extra place to put it right here on the bottom of this ball, which is what actually presses right here in the center and moves around the spring. So let's go ahead and grab us a little grease on our toothpick and start lubing it up. She's all lubed up. Make sure your stick is centered. Take your spring, and you will see, you get a good little pointer here, that is a screw hole receiver, that is a screw hole receiver, and there are 2 little screw hole cutouts on the back of the spring holder. You're going to line those up with the spring or the screw hole receivers. You're going to get it on there and give it a good firm press. Once it clicks in, it's in there. There we go. Now, moving the stick around without it sealed and screwed into a controller will make the rear end pop off again. But once we screw it back in, it's going to be nice and secure. So don't be alarmed if it feels a little wonky. It's got a different spring rate in it, and it's not meant to have screws that aren't in it. While we're looking at the top here as well, go ahead and get a little more lube and just tuck it right into the top. And that ought to do it. This is now a fully upgraded slickbox lubed stick assembly. And now all we gotta do is put it back in the controller. And using the 2 little tabs here, line it up with these 2 potentiometers. Alright, tab to this one, tab to this one. Your prong on the stick should be facing north. Just slap it on there, give it a good press, and it's back on the board. Now usually you can just slide these potentiometers back on by pressing them, but you do have to check to see if the slot that receives that tab is perfect. perfectly north-south. As an example, I'm going to make one off kilter by just rotating it a hair, and now it won't re-secure. You're going to look at it, see that it needs to be up and down, just adjust it however you need to, and then it should pop right back on. Just a hair back the other way. Now it should pop right back on. It is okay to be a little firm with it. You aren't going to break anything. Trust on that. From this point, flip the board back over. And we're going to take those two little Phillips screws and reinsert them in those two holes. Zip those back in there. And now your slick box is installed. You'll want to rotate it around to get the lube to go everywhere it needs to go. And you'll see that it starts loosening up after a minute. It's going to feel really nice. While we're in here, we might as well throw a bit of lube into our C-stick. Just push the stick off to the side, which allows you to access its north, south, east, and west, all that good stuff. Give it a good wiggle. And that's good enough for a C-stick when you're playing, I promise. If you really want to do a slick box on your C-stick, by all means, it's the exact same process, but I've never found it to be necessary. Now let's get these sticks back in here. There's a little notch cut out on the side of this guy that's going to go to your northeast. If you look at the bottom of it, you will see the tab matches the tab on your stick here. Line it up, give it a little rotation. It slides on very easily. Same with your C-stick, line the tab up, swap it on. It's just that easy. Before we get everything else back on, make sure nothing's binding over here and you like the feel. It already feels very nice. Even the C-stick feels nice with a little bit of lube in it. It's just better than it was a minute ago. But once you're at this point, now it's reassembly time. We're going to flip it over, being very careful with the wires hooked to your rumble motor here. We're going to get our bracket, and we're going to slide these back into place. You want the dark side facing forward, the light side in the back. Slide it in its little home here, and then tuck the wires into their slot where they used to be. Same on the other side, dark side forward. Slide it into its little home, tuck the wires back where they're supposed to be. Now that that's in, cable out of the way, and put it right back its two little tabs up here. Your rumble motor will peg facing forward, rotate it so your wires have the most amount of slack, slide it in place. It's just a friction fitting. And these wires here, use this to help point a little easier, actually tuck in underneath this tab here. So there's a black wire and the red wire tucked in under the tab. That keeps them nice and organized. Once we got that all tucked in there, we're going to get the pieces of our shell here. And now comes a bit of fun part. The Z button's always interesting to reinstall. You're going to want to put this little flat piece in first, and it should go in with the peg. Peg into this hole here. Flat piece in, peg in, and then tuck it in on the other side using the flat edge of that side as well. Once it's in, it will actuate correctly. We're going to adjust our button mats and make sure, hold on, ooh, some gunk in there. Tuck our button mats in, make sure they line up with our buttons and are seated nicely. Shouldn't be very hard on that. It's very obvious as long as you've got the conductive discs facing towards you, it's ready to install. We're going to take our PC board with the analog sticks facing down. and slide it into place. This peg here will slide in, and on the C stick, finagle it around till that peg slides in as well. Your little loop on your controller here, cable, will slide into this peg here. And it's sometimes easier to lift the board just a hair to get it started, but it's just a pressure fitting. You're just going to wiggle that sucker on there. And once you've got all the wires all tucked into place, you're going to do the thing that everyone forgets to do. See these sliders here, these little potentiometers? Slide them to the top. If you do not do this, your triggers will not work correctly. I can't tell you how many times I've been so excited after a mod to put it all back together, only to leave one of the sliders down, put it together, and I didn't have a trigger. So, slide them forward because they match with these two square holes on the back of your triggers here. And of course, they're in the top position. You need these in the top position. Take your controller this side down, put your back shell on, give it a wiggle. You'll get a nice meaty click when it wants to seat. From here, it's all putting our screws back in. All right, screws are in. Whoops, managed to sit the cord right in the middle of the lube. We definitely don't want lube on our controller, so we'll clean that up. Lord, could you imagine a lubed stick top? All right, so now with that upgrade, it is a firm, smooth movement from the inside to the outside. Do you see how earlier the controller would move before the stick does? Now, you actually get to see that it's not loose is not the word I'm looking for. Progressive is the word I'm looking for. The movement here is the same effort as the movement here. There's no dead space in the middle. It's just clean, smooth movement, X and Y axis, north and south, east and west, all the way around. Unlike an original, which is hard at the beginning, easy at the end. It falls off in pressure. Here, it is smooth, accurate movement all the way around. And it feels so nice to play with, I promise you. That concludes our first mod. We have slickbox and lubed stick boxes. It's very easy to do. There's no soldering involved. It's all just little parts and being careful. And there's really no wrong way to do it. If this is your first mod, highly recommend. You're going to get a ton of value out of this little bit of effort. Thanks for watching. Join the channel, slap that subscribe button. We're going to be doing more to this controller. It's going to be an absolute Ferrari by the time we're done here. Have a great day.